need to recognise unionist parties probably aren't going to engage in preparatory work as to what a new Ireland would look like, because in fairness to them, legitimately they'll be concentrating on winning the poll for themselves. Like, you need the Irish government to put forward stuff in respect of it. I also think civic groups have a very important role to play. I also think, we need to try to get away from political parties. One of the fears I have, and I'm not making a partisan political point, but if it is simply the case that Sinn Féin are going to be the ones advocating what a new United Ireland looks like, it's not going to be, in my opinion, an inclusive debate. And I just fear that it will just be decided then on what happened in the past as opposed to what could happen in the future. So the people to do it are the Irish government, political parties, but more importantly, civic groups, businesses. People need to wake up to the fact that this is going to happen. And, let's engage with it. It's a very big decision for the country.
So I'll come to Sinn Féin in a minute. But what I'm looking for here, Jim, is there somebody, where does all this information that's being gathered from the civic groups, maybe from the Citizens' Assembly, where is this information poured into?
Yeah,
so
good
that
question.
It can be distilled and say, okay, guess what? After all of this, we are coming up with what we think will work, a federal Ireland.
Yeah, it's a good point, Don. I will answer this, but what we really need to do, Pádraig, is to identify what would be a constitution for this new country, okay? Mm-hmm. How will this new country operate? And that shouldn't be the exclusive responsibility of, say, Southern nationalists or Northern nationalists. But as I say, it's going to be hard. We need to try to engage other people into a forum. I know that there's an organisation that wants to have a citizens' assembly in respect to it. Maybe so. I've no difficulty with that. But I think, for instance, political parties in the first instance have to come up with their own proposals. And that's what I think Fianna Fáil should do. I know Sinn Féin have done it. Other parties may or may not engage in it. But where does it all feed into? I suppose it feeds into some group coming up and saying, this is the constitution that we think should be put forward for a new Ireland.
Yes, Micheál Martin said in an interview with the Irish Sun in December 2017, and he said, in our view, an agreed future Ireland will hold fast the principles of the Good Friday Agreement. That would mean that in the future, United Ireland would still have a Northern Ireland Executive and a Northern Ireland Assembly. And he promised a white paper at that point within shortly. One, was that his own personal position? I don't want you in a position to speak for him because I
think it was in his position as leader of Fianna Fáil. But I suppose they're one of the questions, what type of a legislative system would operate in a new Ireland? If there was a border poll, people have to know what that would be in advance of voting on it. Mm-hmm. I know, if you look back at Sean Lemass's speech to the Oxford Union back in 1959, which you probably looked at, I think in that he was saying that, then Stormont would continue to exist if there was reunification. But my own view is that we should be bolder than that and not allow ourselves to be defined by the reasons for partition 100 years ago. Politics has changed so much in Ireland and in the world since there. But I think if we approach it with just a very narrow definition of the political divisions in Ireland, that we won't produce an exciting or expansive constitution. But, they are the things that have to be decided. Who will be the head of state? What will our legislature look like? What will our executive look like? What will our courts look like? And then there are probably other contentious issues such as flags, emblems, anthems. And then more importantly, there is the issue of just recognising and trying to protect the British identity of people who will be part of this new state, but will probably not have the same protection from the British state as they had previously.
So, why should the Irish people vote for unity, let's say now? What I mean by now, I don't mean like today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
When they look north, they see this ongoing mess of just dysfunctionality at the executive level, where even in the midst of COVID, it's almost like a zero-sum game continues to go on.
Well, I think people need a broad historical understanding of partition and its impact. It was extremely damaging to both sides, both parts of the island. It was extremely damaging to unionism in the north. More particularly, it was more damaging to nationalism in the north. It created a discriminatory state for very many years up there. And in the south, it also had a very damaging impact because I suppose it deprived us of the countervailing impact and influence of people coming from a different religion in particular at that time, although that's not as significant an issue now. So like the reason why we have the dysfunctionality in the north is part of the reason why is because of why we had in the past some dysfunctionality in the south because of the damage inflicted by partition. So people need to adopt sort of a forward, broader view as to what would be the benefits of reunification, what a new country would look like. It's an exciting prospect if it's sold properly, but I agree with you. If we're just going to run it to people and say, listen, do you want to take over Northern Ireland, which is what some unionism want to present this as, which it isn't, well, then I don't think people in the south would be engaged with it.
Yeah, like you see, I kind of put it in the phrase of the aspiration is strong, but the commitment is less so. Like polls will say, I think now, if people are asked, about 60% say they're for unity or for Irish unity. But when follow-up questions are asked, like if this meant an increase in your taxes by 15%, support drops off pretty quickly. It's not an issue in this. Like in the last election, I believe 1% of the people said the North was an issue. It's not something that is concerning to the South, people in the South per se. It's not like housing. It's not like health. It's not
That's
like
correct. Yeah.
All of these issues.
Yeah, it's good. It can be more an emotive issue than a political issue. But like people are still engaged with it. Huge numbers of people recognize the devastation that can be caused by having a continuation of that dysfunctionality in Northern Ireland, So like if the people of Northern Ireland want to become part of a united Ireland, I believe the people of the South will facilitate that.
And that would be looking at more than 51%, 49%.
Yeah.
We're looking for something more like Seamus Mann, not what he exactly proposed, but like there being a substantial section of unionism on board.
Oh, you're talking about Northern Ireland.
Yes. Sorry.
I don't think, that the important aspect of the Good Friday Agreement was that there was a recognition that the future of Northern Ireland would be decided by the people of Northern Ireland. And what we can't do now is to recalibrate that so that the future of Northern Ireland will be decided by the unionists of Northern Ireland. That's just not going to work. So I agree with you. We need to persuade people throughout Northern Ireland, whether they're nationalist or unionist or they don't view themselves on coming under either of those traditions, that their future will be best served by being part of a new country that'll be a member of the European Union, and will still have very strong relationships with the other nations, such as Wales, Scotland, and England.
So, Sinn Féin, who could have said 25 years ago that Sinn Féin could be on the cusp of gaining, first of all, the first ministership in Northern Ireland, if the lucid poll is anything to go by in the last, how they did in the last election there, and the very high odds that it would end up either as a part of a coalition in the next election in Ireland, or even that Mary Lou could be Taoiseach. And when I'm asking you this question now, this book will not be published until late next year. So I'm trying to ask you, thinking, not tomorrow. It's like there's space between what happens exactly